All right. We are live. Yay! Connection problems as we have. I am here with the maverick venture capitalist mogul himself, Mr. VT, Vusi Thembekwayo. If you have not heard of VT, let me give you a very quick, in a nutshell, rundown. So Vusi is a self-made millionaire. Now, the misconception about a self-made millionaire is that people think it's all done by yourself. Wrong. 3 things over here. 1, he made it happen with his Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. If you don't know what that is, it's one day you're in a good mood, one day you're in a bad mood, and you just don't know who you are. Second thing, friends and family, they can be friends or foe. You don't know where you stand when you're on the rise. Third thing, bank loans, debt, borrowing, pleading, please let me get in somewhere. This is how you get to the top of being a self-made millionaire, where you land up with money in the bank that has been blood, sweat, and tears, literally. So how did it all start? It started not as a venture capitalist, started as a public speaker, and also not by choice. Not by choice, no. It was 15 through detention, if I remember correctly, that Mr. VT was called in and to participate in a debate on which he spoke on what women need. And did he succeed in that? No, he actually failed in that. So that was pretty exciting. Did he give up? No, he did not give up. And this is his rise. He is exceptional at public speaking and worked his way up as well as into venture capitalism, if I can call it that, if that's such a word. Worked his way in there. He slept in his car, which was borrowed and ready to be repossessed because it was borrowed, for a very long time, close by to his offices before they came to repossess, where he hid nearby his mom. And where he rented his offices, was it for 3 months? Where he rented his offices, they were paid for. So he had 3 months to burn the line in order to get to where he wants. Now, this is something that I tell my clients often. 1, you have to believe in what you're doing. And 2, you need to want this as much as you want to breathe. You need to want this as much as you want to breathe. And this is definitely something that Mr. VT really, really wanted, whilst as a public speaker, while maneuvering his way into the offices of the man, the legend himself, Madiba. Man, I think that's the only thing I'm really envious about, VT. really envious about. That's my man. But in a nutshell, he has worked his way up the ladder with lots of haters, with lots of praises, with lots of friends, foes, debt, everything that you could possibly think of. And he's a visionary. He has a vision that he wants to bring the world, the human race forward. And I couldn't think of anyone better than to participate as a speaker at the Visionary Business event, to join us in Cape Town, the 14th and 15th of February at Workshop 17, and on the 21st of February in Johannesburg at Workshop 17. So be sure to check the link in the bio or in the comments to join us. Vusi will be joining us as well. I'm very excited about that. And today we're going to have a very short training, basically to show you just what cool kids we are and, you know, what cool shit we know, because we're very clever like that. And to also tease you a little bit, to let you know what's in store for you for the Visionary Business event. So Vusi's team is online on Instagram if you are watching. And this is Vusi, if you can see him now. Hello, Vusi. I've spoken enough. How are you?
Are you well?
Absolutely awesome. Absolutely
Great.
awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, by the way.
Thank you for taking time. I know we're all very, very busy, and to squeeze a slot in. So I would love for us to start off with 3 questions, and we'll see if we have enough time to go through all of them. There are 3 questions that most entrepreneurs and professionals ask themselves. Whether you're employed, you're asking, how can I get more customers in? And when you're self-employed, how do I get more clients? So I'd love to know from you, Vusi, your take on this. My short intake is, do the fucking work. But we're going to do this very professionally because we are doing an event out of this. And obviously we want to get a little bit more expansive on it. So please, how do I get more clients?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the business you're in. it depends on the industry you're in, and it depends on the people you compete with. So I always think of a client acquisition as the end of a process rather than the beginning of a process. So people kind of go, the process, the business goal is to make money, therefore get more clients. I think I kind of think of it the other way around. I think, if you focus on the clients, the money is a result of it rather than an objective, right? So the question asked was, so how do I get more clients? I would say first you have to segment whether or not you're in a product business or a services business, because those are very different sales processes. You also then have to understand if you sell an experience, if you sell a outcome, or if you sell a commodity, because those are very, very different, right? So if I'm selling a commodity, then I want to use language that is based on price and benefits. If I'm selling an experience, I want to use language that is based on aspiration, and those are very, very different. If I'm selling a family holiday for December, say, in the Swiss Alps, right, where a good friend of mine, Christian, had invited me to. But if I'm selling that, it's a very different experience to if I'm trying to sell you shoelaces for your shoes. The shoelaces for your shoes are a utility. We're going to have a conversation about whether or not you need to use them and what is the cost of you not having them. That is to say, the cost of the inconvenience. And is the cost of the product lower than the cost of the inconvenience? Because if it is, buy. It's just that simple. Of course, somewhere in there, I want to factor in who I'm competing with. So I want to understand who am I competing with, what are they selling, and how am I different? If I'm selling a holiday for your family to the Swiss Alps, that's a very different sell. That's about, think about your year and how long your year has been. Think about all the challenges you've had in that year and all the crap you've had to put up with, from your clients to your boss to the business, everybody, all the stuff you've had to put up with. Don't you think you deserve a holiday? Oh, and by the way, you haven't seen your kids for much of the year because you've been working late and waking up early. You've been really disciplined about your workouts and your gymming and your diet. You need 2 weeks where you can just be a human being. Come to the Swiss Alps, right? So those are very different. And I think the mistake a lot of people make is there's this one-size-fits-all sales approach, which is just like, if you sell a product to a person based on utility, it's going to work. There's some things people buy that have nothing to do with utility. I'll very quickly give you an example. I just bought a sports car, and buying that car for me is a dream come true. It had nothing to do with the utility. Like, I've got many cars, but this one I bought because of what it means for me. And so the conversation I was having with a salesperson had nothing to do with power, horsepower, everything to do. So they didn't go, this is the engine, this is the horsepower. I know all those stats. I can get them on the internet, right? Mm-hmm. Which is I think a common challenge most salespeople have today. is you're selling something that people can Google. Yeah. And you still think giving them facts is going to get you the sale. People can just get the facts. But, the whole conversation I had with the salesperson actually ended up being about heritage. So we spoke about the brand and where the brand comes from and what the badge means and what the horse on the badge means and why the Italian flag above the horse on the badge. We spoke about the founder of the firm and the philosophy. We spoke about how that philosophy translates into the product. By the time we got into the car, we were 2 hours into the sale process by the time I went for a test drive. And the sale was kind of already confirmed because we'd had that conversation pre that, right?
So it's also connecting on values, on who your audience is. And like you said before, there's a process before that. There's a consumer decision-making process before that. So you've already got cars, but there's the certain car that you really, really, really desire and want, not necessarily need. So you do all the research before that on Google. Who's driving it? Who's doing it? How do they look in it? Visualizing all of that. A lot of mindset that happens before that. So like you said, the purchase is at the end. But before all the mindset work, it's all knowing who. I mean, this salesman must have been really good too. I mean, he must have known his work as well.
And to his credit, he didn't sell me. I think the mistake many of us make when we're trying to close a sale is we act like salespeople, right?
Yeah.
So, there's something counterintuitive about sales training, which is you learn everything you learn in sales so that you can do it instinctively and intuitively rather than do it off a script. So if you come across to a client as if you're doing something for a script, they immediately feel as if being sold to. And just like you do when you're watching a TV ad, you get up and go make popcorn. Because nobody wants to be sold to. As human beings, we've built up such a high emotional resistance to being sold stuff, because we're being sold every day. You're on your IG and there's pop-up sponsored ads. You're on Facebook and there's sponsored ads. You're driving on the highway and there's a billboard. You just, if you get to your emails and you've filled up with spam, somebody's always trying to sell you something. So as human beings, we've built up such an emotional resistance and a cognitive resistance to selling that the best way to sell is not to. The best way to sell is to understand the mechanics of selling, understand how it actually works, but then do it in a way that is just instinctive and intuitive for you. And the only way to do that is through practice, right? So what was interesting about this young man is he didn't sell me. We just had a conversation. We were literally two kids in the shopping floor of this incredible car brand. We were just two boys, and he took me around to the whole floor, and then he took me upstairs to the owner's floor, and he showed me all the cars we've been chatting about. He was like, there's this one, and there's this one, and there's this one. And so we just got lost, and we were talking about power and power output and, who drives it and where it comes from, and have you seen that test drive, and what about that Top Gear episode, and did you see this and see that? And 2 hours into that, it was like, oh, by the way, let's do a test drive and let's see if you like your car, right? But by then I was already sold. So at that point, price doesn't matter. Because he's immersed me in the value of the brand and in the value of me seeing myself with that brand, that, it's not going to be a price conversation. He doesn't have to handle those objections. Whereas if up front, he'd gone, oh, you want this car? Here are the specs. Here's the price. He and I would have had a very commoditized conversation. I would have gone, well, this dealership is selling it at that price. There's a private seller who's looking for this kind of money. There's, and one other thing he did, which by the way I have to mention, is he mentioned added benefits intuitively in the sale rather than as an afterthought. What a lot of us love to do is we love this glow mail, very mark American infomercials psychology. We go, and what's more, right? So we go, I'm going to sell you this, but wait, there's more. Yeah. Don't do that shit. Just don't do that. What you want is to have the what's more, but you want to make it feel natural. So he was talking about the Owners Club and what the Owners Club do and all these amazing experiences they have and where they go. And he was talking from a point of experience, so he'd clearly been there. But he didn't say to me, oh, by the way, if you buy this car, you join the Owners Club, but you have to buy it from our dealership, because we're the authorized dealer. He just mentioned it. He was like, if you get this is some of the things that happen with it, right? So I was smart enough to put the blocks together. I think a lot of us you're chasing that target so hard and so aggressively that you want to break this thing down into its mechanistic parts so that you can get the sale as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So just to put it in a nutshell, before I get to the second question, which is about how do I be this unforgettable brand? The thing is, the process before, for those listening, just to summarize it, how do you get clients? It's important to know who your audience is and the values. So your values are very much geared towards heritage, towards legacy, towards bringing the human race forward, generational wealth. This brand is on the same par as yourself. We all know what brand that is because we all follow VT and we all like, oh, what car? So we know what car it is. I'm a horse, I'm a power woman. So it's like, yes. So and that is irrespective of whether you have if you're selling a nonprofit or within a nonprofit, or you have selling grocery selling, or you selling blankets, or travel agent, or whatever it is. You need to know the values of yourself and of your audience so that you can best connect with them before you even get to sale, because then the sale's intuitive. So how does it become an unforgettable brand? Because when you first started, did the public speaking help to intuitively know when to close? Because a lot of people, and I'm putting this out there is a niche for teaching social etiquette. Please, there is a niche for this, because a lot of people cannot communicate anymore. They don't know how to speak. So do you think that maybe came from that as well, it's a part, how you were able to close the sale and build that brand as well to be unforgettable?
I think so. When we do, and I do a fair amount of sales training with my own team here, but I often talk about, we don't close here. So we don't close a sale, we open a relationship. So the way we lead the sales process is the whole time we're having a conversation with you to give you a sense of why you would benefit by having a relationship with us. This has nothing to do with whether or not you buy from us. This is just like, we want to have a relationship with you. And we have that relationship by offering these products, which we believe suit this need of yours. And by the way, it's connected to the things you find important. If these are the things you find important, because we do, then we should sustain this relationship for a period of time. And we do that by having you sign this contract. So we really, and I've taken a lot of time I've spent a lot of time with my sales team going, don't close a sale. People should never feel like you've closed anything. They should rather feel like they've become part of something, part of a family, part of a movement, part of something that matters, something that's going to make a difference, right? Especially today's world with millennials, who don't buy stuff based on value. They buy stuff based on values. So what you really want to make sure is that you open the sale. I think public speaking taught me that kind of instinctively, because in public speaking, what you're doing is you're communicating a very complex set of ideas as simply as possible. And you're doing it in the hope that that it's going to inspire action. So, when Martin Luther King said, I have a dream that one day the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to break bread on the table of brotherhood. The first thing he did is he used imagery, because the minute the mind can see it, then you're closer to doing it, right? But the second thing he does is says, I have a dream. Towards the end of the speech, if you listen to it, he says, we need a messaging to the United States that says that you guys have issued us this check for the promises you've made, but this check has returned saying no money in the bank account. So he says, even though I have this dream, if the system or the situation doesn't allow for this dream to be actualized, it's not going to be actualized. And that works. That's really, really an effective way of doing it. So I would say to anybody who's in a sales process, particularly people who are entrepreneurs, because if you're an entrepreneur, you're selling every day, is you don't close a sale, you open a relationship. And you open a relationship in the same way you would when you want to date someone, by going, I like you. I think we have a bit of chemistry. I think this thing could go somewhere. But I think, so what do you say about a date? Then at the end of the first date, you go, what do you say about a second one? Right? That's kind of, in our firm, that's kind of how we think about building relationships with clients. It's just, you see the world in this way. We see the world in this way. What do you say we go on a date? Let's try something together. And that opening of relationships is far more sustainable because, by the way, just one final thing. Every time you close a sale, notice what you have to do is you have to make a hard promise. You never close a sale without making a hard promise. So before you close a sale, you go through the promising stage where you go, I promise my product or my business is going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you open a relationship, you don't really make a promise. You make a commitment. You kind of go, I commit that I'm going to be available, that I'm going to do the best I can, that I'm going to make sure that I'm going to do the best I can to make sure that we succeed. But a commitment is different because a promise is final. A commitment allows for latitude. So in a commitment where you fail, you can be honest and go, I thought it would, but it didn't work, or there's a problem here, or it's a mechanical issue. And because you've opened a relationship, people are a lot more forgiving than if you made very hard promises trying to close a sale, and now this thing doesn't do what you said it would do 6 months in.
I love that. Oh, did you get the golden nuggets? I commit. It's latitude. I commit. I love that. So that also means I need to have a good relationship with myself.
Yeah.
In order to have a relationship with someone else.
110%. Yeah, I mean, I think you could write a book about that too, right?
There's
one of the things
I take credit.
One of the things I find interesting with, I was having a conversation yesterday with one of the guys in my research team, and we were talking about self-esteem. And I said, self-esteem is interesting because it's esteem of self by self. It's not esteem of self by other. And it's not esteem of self based on the opinion of other. It's esteem of self by self. And I think human beings are born naturally with high self-esteem. I've never seen a 2-year-old child that's too shy to try walking. We're just naturally born with high self-esteem. What happens is the world breaks that esteem down. It breaks that esteem down by saying you're not A, you're B. You're not creative, you're mathematical or analytical. You're not male, you're female. You're not white, you're black. You're not X, you're Y. And so the world starts creating these little boxes that tell you who you are. And the whole time, you're trying to find a sense of who you are based on those boxes. I think that's really what actually distorts our sense of self-esteem is I now have to find a way to belong in the world based on the description of me given to me by the world. And I have to like it, right? So if the world says X, I have to like it. Because if I don't like it, it affects my self-esteem. Just rubbish. Your esteem of self is you with you, right? I think it's a beautiful, it's like a Buddhist saying that says the self is an illusion. In fact, there's a philosopher who wrote about that. I just can't think of their name. But the idea here is that even how you see yourself is premised on how you've been taught to see yourself. So I find particularly a lot of people who are involved in client engagement are looking consistently for external validation because we live in a world where validation is externalized. How do you know you're performing as a salesperson? You get given a target, external. How do you know you're doing well as a business? You have a revenue target, external. How do you know as a board that you're performing well? The shareholders give you a bonus on your board fees, target. How do you know you're doing well as a CEO? You get dividends. Right? So there's this externalization of reward, and we attach rewards to esteem. And I think the closer you can get back to recognizing that you are enough, that you are complete, that you are more than capable and competent, that everything you believe about yourself has been taught to you to believe about yourself, you can change how you begin to have a relationship with yourself and a relationship with the world, right? So to go back to the early example, that young man who was sitting in that car, very high sense of self-esteem, didn't need my validation at all. And it was so interesting, his energy was just so relaxed. He didn't need to close that sale, right? And a lot of us you need the sale. Because you're behind on target, you need to close the sale. We had a fairly large deal we were working on in the final quarter of last year. And I gave the team a very strict instruction. I said to them, you have to close this deal by end November. And they worked tirelessly to close this deal. They issued contracts, everything got done. And then year end came, and because we're dealing with a large corporate, and people who work in large corporates tend to think, the sun shines out of their own asses. No offense to people that work in large corporates. But, we're working with and then what they do is they start throwing process at you, which they didn't mention before. So they go, oh, by the way, before us to do this, we need you to tick box A and B and C. We went, but wait a minute. We had a discussion. We agreed. You committed. And now that we're at the final stages, you want to take me back to step one. And left it over December, and we came back. We had our first meeting last week at the office. And this week, yesterday, I said to the salesman driving it, I said to him, pull out of the deal. And it's a large deal. I mean, if we closed it, it would have been one of the larger deals for the year last year. So just pull out. And I could, see just his eyes like, what? This is a big deal. I said, what you do is you pull out of the deal. But you communicate the reasons why to client. So we wrote a very well-written, structured, completely emotionally agnostic, factual email. We said, fact, we gave you guys a 50% discount on price based on relationship. Fact, we've already delivered some of the things we've committed in this contract because we wanted to show you value up front. Fact, we took time of our CEO, which was my time, and our CIO to come and meet with you twice, fly to a different province to meet with you and communicate with you what we wanted to do. We've made ourselves thoroughly and completely available. Fact, we followed every single process you told us to get to until this point. Now when we're at the point of finalization, you want to take us a step back. We feel disrespected, so here's what we're going to do to maintain our respect, not only for ourselves, but the respect we have for you. We're going to completely rescind the deal. You don't get the 50% discount anymore. If you guys still want to do the deal, you're going to do it at 2020 prices, which, by the way, are 56% of the prices they were last year. And you only have until the end of January to come back to us. I'm sitting here with you. I saw that the marketing director sent an email. I haven't read it. But the point is, it's of no consequence what his response says. Because sales is about energy. If we act desperate, we're going to get the peanuts. So we go, no, this is the value of this thing. We've shown as much value as we can. If you don't believe this value, let's not do it. But what we're not going to do is disrespect each other.
I love that. Focus determines your reality. So, and energy, it's taking on the forms. What most people do is, what we've been conditioned to do is focus on the money, because the money is going to bring us the happiness. Yeah. Money is going to close everything. The money is going to bring us everything that we want. And it's so important to hear it, that money is a byproduct of the energy that you put your focus on, and energy takes on the form of where your focus is. So if your focus is on lack, that's what your energy is going to be like in both life and business, not just business. And that's how you're going to go through things. And I want to reiterate this because it's important what Vusi said right now. Values and your audience. If you want to get clients, you want to build a brand, you need to know what your values are. You need to know who your audience is. And this is exactly what was shown here. It doesn't matter what product you're selling. You don't sell your self-worth, or actually, I don't believe in that anyhow, me personally, because when we speak about self-worth and self-esteem, we put the things outside of ourselves, and whatever happens outside of ourselves, then we take it within. And the power is within you already. The power to make a decision, like Vusi did, and to encourage his team to go past what the norm is, because leaders don't follow, and you can only be a leader once you're leading yourself. So once you're getting into that motion, then you can make decisions like that, because that closes the door to something that's toxic for the business to grow, for the vision. Because I recall, Vusi wants to take his business global, even more global than global, universal. We're going universal, baby. And as the leader in venture capitalism, and in order to do that, you have to know how to position yourself as a brand. You have to know what the power is within you. And the people that you work with, like the salesman, he mirrored himself within you. It's a mirror. It's holding up a mirror. I teach my kids this. When you feel that someone has a lack of energy, hold up a mirror and ask yourself, is this me or is this them reflecting on me? And then when you see it, someone else reflecting on you, then you kind of like, but you were both speaking on the same energetic level. There was a form of energy there with the highest values of legacy, of carrying on a heritage, generational wealth. So that's what you were bringing forward. So this is important for you to hear this, please. One, know your audience, know your values. Last question, Vusi, because I could talk about a lot of things. I know our time's limited. One of the things that I don't know if we'll maybe differ over here in opinion, but a lot of entrepreneurs often come to me and they go, I have this profession, this profession, this profession. I have a grocery selling business, but I also want a nonprofit. Can I do both, or should I be focusing on one? My opinion, I always say you can do everything, but the red golden thread, or whatever it's called, the golden thread, has to be your purpose. It has to be the reason why you're here on earth, because that's the thing that you bring forward and not the profession. I always speak about being purpose over profession, because you're not your profession. You were never born to be your profession. What is your opinion, or what is your advice, Vusi?
It's a tough one. It's a tough one, and I think it's tough because I'm the older I've gotten, and the more experience I've received, or the more experience I've had rather, and the more guidance I've received from people that I look up to, people I call mirrors of mine. One of the things I've learned is that there is no template for life.
Boom.
And so, there's this idea that there are certain truths that are so universal that they are without nuance, and that's not true. Every bit of truth has a nuance to it. So the reason I'm saying that is because I've become fairly reticent when people ask me the question. So, and somebody actually asked me the question yesterday, a young entrepreneur who was like, I've got these 4 businesses. Should I do what everybody says, which is like dump 3 and focus on 1, or should I keep all 4 going? And I ended up saying to him what I'll say to you, which is I actually don't know. Because I think our paths are different. And I think our paths find manifestation in ways that are different, right? I'm doing 2 things kind of really at the same time now. I'm a global speaker. This year alone, I think we're scheduled to do 16 or 17 countries. And that's just the stuff that's scheduled at the beginning of the year. A lot of stuff's going to happen in the middle of the year. But we'll do 16 or 17 countries this year easy. And at the same time, I'm building what I want to be the largest venture capital firm south of the Sahara Desert. I want the largest venture capital firm in the Southern Hemisphere, excluding Australia. It's going to take a lot of work, right? What I've become very good at, I think, is understanding what you call the golden thread, which is the why for me. And my why always is that I told you this last time we spoke, is I'm an elevate guy. So I'm not the person you bring in when you want somebody to steady the ship. Mm-hmm. I'm the guy you bring in when the ship is a bit too steady and you want somebody to F things up and you want to elevate people's level of ambition, their drive, their goals. Mm-hmm. I do it in different ways, whether I'm on a platform speaking or I'm writing a book or I'm investing in an entrepreneur. Whatever I do, if the minute I get involved, the outcomes get elevated because that's what I bring, right? And so I think it's important for people to, rather than ask the question, should I focus on one thing or do many things? The question should be, what do I want to be in my eulogy? When I'm no longer here and somebody's standing in front of my peers and friends and haters, and they're telling the story of my life, what do I want them to say? Because usually what you'll notice is if you start with the end in mind, then your purpose becomes very clear. Mm-hmm. You'll write down the stuff that matters to you just instinctively. I want people to say that I did X and I did Y and I did Z. Well, then do X and Y and Z. That's the stuff you should be focusing on. Mm-hmm. So I do. I mean, I think we live in a very mechanistic world where people are looking for the formula. That's why I said there's no template to life. People are looking for that formula that it can just apply. It's like Excel. You can, there's a formula, you plug in the inputs and out comes the outputs. So, and that's how people treat wealth. I think people treat wealth and meaning like that. People go, Vusi, you got wealth. What's the formula? There is none. There's a bit of experimentation. There's a plug and a play somewhere. There's something I'm copying from somebody else. I got a board member of mine who said, sometimes you have to case life. I said, what is case? He says, copy and steal everything, right? I was like, wow, it's really, really good, right? So, and there are parts where I'm experimenting new things and trying stuff for the first time, then it works. There are parts where we steal a little bit from somebody else and then that works. Then there are parts where you do both and it fails. But what you're constantly looking for is to fail upward. So that wherever we fail, we're failing at a level different to the level we're trying at. And that's just about move yourself upward to the next level, right? So I think I want to caution this. Don't look for the template because people will read a biography expecting the template. They read Ray Dalio's book because they want the template. You're reading Warren Buffett's book because you want the template. There's a fantastic book, I've just finished reading it, by Jackie Chan called Never Grow Up, the Jackie Chan. And the first thing he says in the book, he says, there's no formula to this. He says, but it's like a playground. You just got to play. And at some point, you're going to find the equipment or the sandbox that's for you, that is aligned to your purpose and your talents. And that's where you're going to spend your time. And I think if you treat life as an exploration rather than as an instruction, life is a lot more beautiful because you're exploring all the time and you're learning yourself. The hardest part about this thing called life is the recognition that the more of yourself you know, the more of yourself there is to know.
Yeah.
Because you're discovering stuff you didn't know was important to you. You're discovering stuff you didn't know you were good at. You're discovering stuff you didn't know turned you on. But how could you know? You were never exposed to it. You're only learning these things for the first time. So of course you're going to enjoy it. And of course you're going to take to it or not take to it. I think it's important to allow life to reveal itself to you rather than think that you can just follow a, pedagogic instruction, go to school, learn it, memorize it, and then repeat it in an exam and I'm going to pass.
Yeah, I love that, Vusi. I also say that everything in life, in terms of the template that everyone searches for, they're all empty vessels, and you need to fill the empty vessels with you. Whether it be, so when you're reading a book and you're really inspired by it, you're inspired by it for a reason because it has to do with something that has to do with your purpose. And I believe in past lives, so you carry it with you. And those things that you learn are the values, are skills, hard and soft skills, adventures that they've gone on. And you take those things because those are the things that you'd like to experience, but how they experienced isn't how you want to experience it. Mm-hmm. For example, if you're curing cancer and you're visualizing it, Louise Hay was speaking about this, and someone goes, I'm visualizing someone taking, I don't know, whatever, the red blood cells, and they're killing the white blood cells. And or the other way around, I'm not a biologist, just want to state this here. And for someone that's visualizing this and they're not someone that's aggressive, that's not going to work for them. But the template is that you visualize. It's an empty vessel. It's a tool you use, but you fill it with going, I like to see it, how it's being softened over with water and flushed out of my body or something to that effect. So it's how you look at it, your viewpoint. And that's what we're here to learn about. So whether you are X, Y, black, white, woman, whatever you've come here to learn is to accept that it's a process. So if you're going to get clients, if you want to run your business, if you're a professional who's employed, you need to go through the process. You need to be refined, and it's going to burn, and it's going to hurt, and you're going to cry, and you're going to throw tantrums and throw all your toys out of the pram, which is all good. But at the end of the day, when you come out at the end, if you don't go through it, you're never going to come out on the other end. And you're just going to keep going back. Like you said, you don't fail forwards or upwards.
I feel like, I always say to people that I feel like people want to live in the maturation part of their life without going through the induction. And so life is about induction. And if you follow the natural laws of nature, life has an induction, it has a graduation, and then it has a maturation. That's how life works. So, when you're born as a child, the stuff your parents teach you is the induction stuff. Don't touch a red stove. Why? Because if you do, it'll burn you. I mean, you can. It's just not advisable. Don't swim in the middle of winter. Why? Because if you do, you'll get the flu, right? So there's an induction there that happens. And then as you grow, notice how every culture in the world has a graduation process. Like, there's for in my culture, at a certain age, as a young black male, you go through circumcision, and that's a graduation into adulthood. And different cultures do different things to graduate you to the next stage of your life. In the Jewish culture, they've got the bar mitzvah. There's a way that we say to you, okay, so you kind of cross this threshold, you're at the next stage of your life. But the recognition is, even though you're at the next stage of your life, you're still in preparation for the maturation, which is the stage of your life where you kind of have it all figured out. Listen, man, you don't get to that stage of your life, I think, until you're in your 80s, if that. So I think a lot of people want maturation without induction or graduation. And life is like that. So if you're starting a new business, or you're starting a new career, or you have to recognize the stage you're at. And then you often also have to recognize that if you are at the maturation stage of something, odds are you are ripe to be disrupted. Because it means you have learned the rules of the game so well, you don't even see the blind spots anymore.
Yeah.
So the best thing people who are in the maturation stages of their lives do is they go right back to induction. They take a step back and they go, I need to relearn. I need to, what's happening? What's happening around me? What's moving? What's shifting? What's changing? It's what Andrew Groves calls being paranoid. You have to be constructively paranoid because you've become so good at this thing that you think this thing is all it'll ever be. And it's a bit like you never notice how companies that disrupt companies are not the ones that come from that industry. Airbnb wasn't a hotelier business. Uber wasn't a transportation business. I mean, some of these examples are very overused, but it's because people from the industry reach a level of maturation that they get into this thing called a group think and an industry think. And they see the industry always as it is rather than as it could be. Yeah. And I think it's a challenge for us in our personal lives too, is look always for the induction and the graduation. So the minute you become so good at something, just go back and go, what am I missing? What's the trick that I'm learning? What's new? What's happening? Because if you look hard enough, you'll find it. And it often puts you ahead of where everybody else is. People will be good at the old thing, but you always want to be getting better at the new thing.
Yeah, I love that. Vusi, we could talk forever, but actually I'm going to tease everyone and let you know that if you're ready to go to that maturation phase and ready to transition, going from the induction towards the maturation and earn your stripes, because we have to earn our right of passage. It's just the way it is. Indiana Jones had to do it as well. We all have to do it. And if you're ready for this, come and join us in Cape Town the 14th and 15th of February and the 21st of February in Johannesburg. I will put the link where you can purchase your tickets, which are available for you to get now. So that'll be really exciting. And Vusi will be there as well as some other international speakers and local speakers as well. Thank you so much for your time, Vusi. I know so much to appreciate it. I know your team is on high drive. So I really, really appreciate that social media team, Vusi, as well. Thank you so, so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
Cool. And we'll see each other soon. And I'm looking forward to hear what the marketing director had to say.
Absolutely. I'll have a story closed for you by then.
Oh, yes, please. And I'm just going to put it out there, that beautiful little badge with a horsey on it. That would be lovely to have a spin in it when I'm there. So in South Africa, please. All right. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us. Have an awesome day, and we'll see you in Cape Town and Johannesburg. Adios, amigos.
Cheers.